seat. Popcorn is on me.
Camera speed.
Sound production, take one.
Hello, welcome to Meet Me at the Movies. Noel T. Manning II here in the new year with Thomas Manning, and it is full-blown award season, Thomas. It seems like every few days there are more and more awards coming out, from the Critics Awards to the Golden Globes, which we had recently. And let me just do a quick shout-out for the Golden Globe Awards award winner, Demi Moore. If you have not seen her acceptance speech, if you watch nothing else relating to the award show for the Golden Globes, go back and check that award speech, and just congrats to someone who has endured a lot in her life. And I've been a Demi Moore fan going back to when she was on General Hospital, a soap star, and then, of course, starring opposite of John Cusack in one of my favorite films from Savage Steve Holland, One Crazy Summer. So wanted to make sure I mentioned that. But it's award season, Thomas, and we're going to be talking about awards that are very special to the Tar Heel State for sure.
Yeah, really excited to be breaking down the North Carolina Film Critics Association Awards, the 13th annual Best of Cinema Awards. And I've been a voting member now for 5 years, I believe, if I had that math correct. And you've been a voting member for, well, a little bit longer than that. And then I don't know, you're on the governing board or whatever, one of those things. But, North Carolina, from the mountains to the coast, we have just incredibly thoughtful critics, so many different voices. And what I love about our organization is that no matter who you speak to, you'll find someone who will introduce you to a new film or a new filmmaker that they are unbelievably passionate about. And we have 67 members
67
now.
members, yeah.
And each one that you speak with, there's always something new to be discovered. And I just really, really love that about the NC Film Critics.
Now, I do too. I think the diversity of our membership is reflected each year in our nominations and in those that win. And this year's no different, because we have horror films that won. We have filmmakers that directed comedies that ended up winning, and we have epics that pretty much everybody who goes to movies on a regular basis. So we've got a little bit of everything in this year's award winners. And this year's a little different, Thomas. Normally there's one standout winner that you could say, okay, this one, won 8 awards, won 10 awards, won 12. You can always see some standout. But this year that we had 5 films, Thomas, that each won 3 awards. So they spread the love out for sure. Leading the pack, Conclave, Challengers, Dune Part 2, Nosferatu, and The Substance, which we've already mentioned with Demi Moore. Each of those won 3 awards each.
Yeah, and you mentioned Conclave, which was our Best Picture winner, won for Best Narrative Film, Best Adapted Screenplay, and Best Acting Ensemble. And interesting tidbit about this victory for Conclave for Best Picture that I don't know if you're even aware of. We're actually, at this point in award season, the first Critics Association that gave it Best Picture. So, because I heard some rumblings about that. There's a subreddit community out there that keeps up with the Oscar race and always keeps up with whatever Critics Association's wins are coming through, kind of trying to get an idea of what the Academy might be gearing towards. And they pointed out North Carolina Film Critics at this point, first ones to give Conclave the big prize. So we'll see if maybe see where that trends otherwise.
Well, I'll say that was one of my favorite films of the year. You and I both, we talked about it on this show, and it's a film that just kind of blew us away, and it was one that we continued to talk about and are continuing to talk about even now. And I think it's well deserving of the awards that it did receive right here for the North Carolina Film Critics for sure. And Dune, Thomas, when we talk about Dune, I mentioned the kind of epic films. Dune Part 2 really made waves. It had some wins: Best Director, Best Sound Design, and Special Effects as well, Best Special Effects. So I think the kind of the epic scope of this film and the technical brilliance really shining through with what the North Carolina Film Critics had to say about Dune Part 2.
Yeah, and Dune Part 2 originally was supposed to be released in 2023, but the guild strikes pushed it back a little bit and ends up with a March 2024 release. And once again, here we are nearly a year after that initial release, and still getting recognized. And whether you look at, Dune Part 2 as a March release, or last year we had Oppenheimer and Barbie in July, or even the year prior, Everything Everywhere All at Once in April, I think more and more studios are recognizing that the typical awards release calendar, it doesn't have to be, a Bible that you swear by in every film that you release, because people will recognize the quality, critics will recognize the quality, and general audiences will support those films if they're well made, and if they find a way to connect with viewers, which Dune Part 2 very much did. It's I would say it's in my top 5 films of the year. It's a sci-fi sequel right up there, in my opinion, with The Empire Strikes Back. And I think Christopher Nolan, good friend of Denis Villeneuve, very much said the same thing about it. So yeah, Dune Part 2, very glad to see it continue to get some love.
I think one of the things, if you talk to any film critics who are engaging in FYC season, for your consideration award season, between October and January, it really is triage. And we've said that on this show, and it is, you're getting bombarded with releases that we haven't had a chance to see until November, and they're starting to send those out. And, we are fortunate that we get a chance to see advanced screenings, sometimes in theaters, sometimes through home delivery. And, we don't get a chance to see all of them that way, because some studios are either reluctant or they're waiting, and, we have to work at it. But I'll tell you, it is wonderful to be able to, as you say, think back to those films that were released earlier and realize they still are worthy. I'd love to see more of these films that they push out toward the end of the year spread out. I'm a champion for them spreading those out throughout the year. Any chance I get a chance to talk about that, I will. And I wish that somebody would listen, because Adam Long and I have had long, lengthy discussions on that. And we do think that they need to spread out some of these films a lot more than just trying to kind of cram them in for us to all to consider right here in the last couple months of the year. Now, Thomas, I know a film that you were a big fan of, and you told me that I really needed to check it out, and that was Challengers. I know you wanted to talk a little bit about that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Challengers. Actually, Zendaya did get my vote for Best Actress for her performance in this film. She didn't end up winning. Mikey Madsen won for Anora, which very pleased with that win as well. I think that was well deserving. But Challengers, another film earlier in the spring, I believe this came out in March or April, and talking about the staying power. This, is a story that it was marketed heavily on this love triangle at the center of it. But really, more than anything, it's a film about obsession with one's craft, and sacrificing everything, and oftentimes everyone in your life, in the pursuit of your craft, and all the toxicity that surrounds that. And
I'll throw in, the power of obsession, as you mentioned, but also dysfunctional relationships. Oh my! To the if there was an Oscar for dysfunctional relationships, I think this film would receive it for sure.
Yeah. So, this film, Zendaya's character, I would say we see it mostly through her eyes. And her character is a master manipulator. She's playing a game of chess with the people in her life. Because really, more than anything in the world, she just wants to see some good tennis. It doesn't matter who gets hurt along the way. She's planting these seeds strategically at various points over the course of this movie, which this timeline takes place, I believe it's 13-year period. And we cut back and forth to about individual 1-week periods within this 13 years. And timelines, it is structured like a Nolan film in that regard in many ways. And the editing, which Challenger did win for best editing, it has to be airtight in order for something with that many different timelines, cutting back and forth and piecing together, in order for it to bring the emotional impact that it did, the editor had to be just at the top of their game, which is what we had with Challengers.
Yeah, and the editing was phenomenal, and the way that they took you into scenes. And I'll also say, The cinematography was pretty amazing in this as well. It did not get the win. It did get a nomination, but the cinematography paired with that editing was just incredible. It went hand in glove, and but the best editing for this film was the win for the North Carolina Film Critics Association, as well as best score and best original song as well. Any other thoughts you want to make sure you share about this film before we move on and take a quick intermission?
Well, yeah, you mentioned the best score and original song. That's Reznor and Ross, who, of course, from 9 Inch Nails, and the work they've done together. And going back to The Social Network as well, they won an Oscar for that with Fincher. They've worked with Fincher a lot over the years, and continuing to do some work with Luca Guadagnino. So, I just really love the techno quality of the work they do. Although a friend of the show, fellow North Carolina Film Critics member, Christian Jessup, the Reznor Ross just doesn't do it for him for some reason. And so maybe at some point we'll have to bring him on the show and have him defend his point, as a composer himself.
Yes.
Talking about why many other critics gravitate towards that, but not him. So
absolutely. I love that idea. I love it. Maybe we could bring him on in the next couple of weeks. Once we get the Oscar nominations for score out there, we can get him to talk about, his thoughts on that. And we can definitely ask him that question. I love that idea. And one thing I do want to mention is there were a lot of people talking about how much they love the score of Dune Part 2. And Dune Part 2 did not qualify, is not an Oscar qualifier for best musical score, because so much of what was used came from the previous film. Even though there's definitely differences, it was not a qualifier. And for the NC Film Critics, we kind of followed those guidelines, and so we made members aware that we were not going to allow Dune Part 2 to be considered for best score for that reason. But it did get a lot of love. There was a lot of conversation behind the scenes. And for those that may, kind of wonder how we decide the films that are chosen, is we have a lot of dialogue for a month or two leading up to it, kind of behind the scenes in a social platform that we talk about. We make our pitches. We tell our reasons why we think this should be considered, or reasons why something should not be considered. We do that, and we have a lot of engagement, Thomas. It's great to see that kind of happening. And then we have kind of a call for nominations. So we send kind of an open ballot out to our members, and then they all submit their top 5 or so in each category. And then those are narrowed down to the actual nominations, and then we vote on the nominations. So it's a lot of work behind the scenes before we get to these winners. So it's just not a random thing that happens. We have a lot of engagement for sure. Yeah,
we don't just put a bunch of movie names on a little note and shake it around, put it in a hat and draw names out. Which, I kind of make life decisions that way, but we don't do that for North Carolina Film Critics nominations. So
we do not. Well, we're going to take a quick intermission, and we're going to come back and talking about North Carolina connections. We're going to talk about Margaret Qualley and why we should talk about her. That's coming back right after this quick intermission on Meet Me at the Movies, as we spotlight the North Carolina Film Critics Association Best of Cinema Awards for 2024.
Won't you come and meet me at the movies? Won't you come and watch a flick?
Education is our most powerful tool to improve and change our world. Hi, I'm Rhonda Benfield, your host for School Matters. Join me for a new program every other week with information from and about the students and staff of Cleveland County Schools. Discover what our schools are doing to challenge students and help them reach their full potential. You can catch us on Spectrum Cable Channel 19 or stream us live on c19.tv.
Hi, I'm Shara Miller, the host of Artworks. Each month we bring to you wonderful, talented artists from here in Cleveland County and the region. We have artists, we have potters, we have painters, we have musicians, We have actors. We just have wonderful artists that come to you and tell you about all that they're doing, their creativity, what inspires them. Join me here on Artworks each month on C19. You can also watch us online at c19.tv.
Hi, I'm Nikki Bliss Carroll, your host for Cleveland Connections, the show that explores what's happening at Cleveland Community College. Join us as we sit down with members of faculty and staff to discuss programs of study, upcoming events, and other exciting campus news. We'll have a new show for you each month on C19 TV, or you can stream us online at c19.tv. Tune in and connect with Cleveland Community College on Cleveland Connections.
Won't you come and meet me at the movies? Won't you come and watch a flick?
Hello, welcome back to Meet Me at the Movies. Noel T. Manning II here, along with Thomas Manning, and we are talking about the North Carolina Film Critics Association Best in Cinema Awards for 2024. We're not going to get through all of them. If you want to find out that full list of the winners and the nominees, I encourage you to go to the website. That's ncfilmcritics.org. Well, Thomas, before the break, we teased a North Carolina connection. Margaret Qualley earned a standout award for her connections to North Carolina. She earned the Ken Hankey Memorial Tar Heel Award, and she's got some North Carolina connection. But also want to mention The Substance brought home Best Supporting Actress, which was Qualley, Best Hair and Makeup, and Best Original Screenplay. This film, if you haven't seen it, blends psychological thrills and some pretty sharp performances as well.
Yeah, so Margaret Qualley, for those that might not be familiar, she is the daughter of Andy McDowell. Andy McDowell from Gaffney, South Carolina, just over the state line here. We're in Cleveland County, so just south of us. And Margaret Qualley grew up in the Asheville area in the Biltmore Forest, North Carolina. I think the first place you and I saw her was in the Tarantino film Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where she played a member of the Manson family. And then in the years since, every time that she's popped up, we're instantly captivated. She is a movie star I think she is a movie star right now. I think early on we were thinking movie star in the making, but I think now she has fully reached that status with this performance. And acting opposite Demi Moore in The Substance, it's insanely difficult to describe this film for those who might not have seen it, but basically she is playing in some, you could probably describe her as a younger version of a Demi Moore type character. And it is a fearless performance from the both of them. They are two sides of the same coin. And if one coin wasn't, if one performance wasn't as good as the other, then the entire film would have fallen apart. But they were both, I think they both elevated each other with their performances in sync with each other.
I agree with you, and I think Qualley's work, particular on The Substance, I think what it does is, as we've seen during award season, it's really proving her ability to take on some complex roles, deliver performances that will resonate with critics and audiences alike. But also, she's not afraid to be, sharing time with someone who is proving herself to be. From a legendary status. I mean, Demi Moore's been around forever. At one point, she was the highest paid female actor in the world. And, to see her getting love as well as Qualley getting some love, I think it's pretty fascinating and pretty wonderful as well. You mentioned Tarantino's film earlier, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Interesting connection here. Qualley and Mikey Madison both were in that film, and they both got some awards love this year as well. So it's pretty cool to see that, to see these two NC Film Critics award winners. Madsen received Best Rising Star and Outstanding Actress for her breakout role in Honora.
If you go back and look at the actors that played the Manson family in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, within that group you have of course, Mikey Madsen and Margaret Qualley, but also you have Sydney Sweeney and Austin Butler, Elvis himself, and also he was in Dune Part 2 as well. So The Manson family, Tarantino's Manson family, has had some major success recently.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Anything else you want to add about the Substance or Margaret Qualley before we move on?
I'm really glad to see that it won Best Hair and Makeup. Just those practical makeup effects and the prosthetics are mind-boggling. And I'm really happy that we're able to recognize those below-the-line creatives who do incredible work like that.
I'm also excited that we continue to think about films that are kind of outside the standard mainstream and not your typical just dramas, always your dramas or something a little different. The Substance is definitely something a little different. And Nosferatu, a reimagined horror classic for the NC Film Critics. It took Best Cinematography, Best Costume Design, Best Production Design. The Gothic visuals, that kind of eerie atmosphere really, really, really stood out to me in Nosferatu, as well as a lot of other things, as well as the acting was pretty phenomenal as well. But I've got to give a shout out to Nosferatu.
Yeah, and Nosferatu, Best Costume Design, Best Production Design. And looking to the production design, watching this felt like time traveling to a place that you did not want to be time traveling to. Because Germany in the winter of 1838 looks like a miserable place to live. Just look at the public health hazards, the intense lack of hygiene, and to the production design crew, the set decorators, the art directors, y'all made me feel squeamish, and hats off to y'all for that. And then as far as the costume design, I mean, Count Orlok, the vampire Nosferatu himself, he's got this incredible billowing cloak. And then Aaron Taylor Johnson in this film, he plays a guy named Friedrich, who's kind of an aristocrat, a very wealthy man. He has these ornate suits and coats. Just everybody in this movie is wearing those clothes. Just it almost feels like those clothes become a part of who they are. And that's the mark of very successful costume design.
I think anytime you try to reimagine a film that's a classic, you're really setting yourself up for failure. It is such a difficult task to do. And I think the reimagining of this horror classic was done so well. It did blend nostalgia, but it brought fresh perspectives with amazing talent across the board, below the line, above it as well. I think it's really a testament to me how timeless stories can evolve, not just survive, but how they can evolve if they're put into the right hands. And Nosferatu was one of those that was definitely put into the right hands.
Yeah, and Nosferatu, of course, based on the Dracula legend, and there was a silent film back in 1922. So here we are, over 100 years later, with that story continuing to inspire new creatives. And I think Robert Eggers, as a filmmaker, this was the perfect marriage of his sensibilities as a creative. This film, I've seen it twice in theaters already, and it's one that I would return to quite a few more times as well.
Well, Thomas, we've only got about 5 minutes or so, but there was one film that took us both by surprise. It was a comedy, and it was a comedy in a way that was authentic within its relationships. And the best directorial debut went to a director of a film that you and I both had at the top of our list for the year of 2024.
Yeah, so Josh Margolin, directorial debut for Thelma, and this film is inspired by his relationship with his own grandmother. We have 93-year-old June Squibb playing this version of the grandmother, and she's doing her best Tom Cruise impression. She's the target, the target of a con that loses her, a pretty good chunk of cash. So she decides to take it into her own hands, have her own little Mission Impossible situation. And she's not going to go quietly into the night. But just as much as it is, a fun adventure comedy, it's a beautiful story about the relationship between a grandmother and her grandson. who was played by Fred Heschinger in this film, who's a guy that popped up in like 6 movies that I watched this year, and I never even seen him prior to this year. So, so the fact that Thelma is now a North Carolina Film Critics Association award winner, that is something that I think they can walk highly knowing that. So
Absolutely, and a film that I will continue to go back to time and time again, and continue to remind me of how much I appreciated my grandparents and the love I had for them and still have for them, even though they're no longer living. Just a beautiful film. I encourage you to check it out. And you and I both, I've got just time enough to mention one of the things I wish we'd had more love of in the NC Film Critics is a film that really stood out to me and really kind of got lost in the shuffle. It didn't really click with audiences. I'm not really sure why, but Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, got Best Stunt Coordination Award for the NC Film Critics. And that is the solo award it received. But man, I loved this film on so many different levels. And it was one of my favorite films of 2024.
yeah, George Miller, he's a mad scientist in the art of action filmmaking. And with each Mad Max film, he basically creates new ways for the stunt crew to do things that have never been done on film. And we see and obviously it's usually vehicular in nature, the stunts, and something we see in this paragliding assailants in a truck chase. And when I saw that, that's when I was like, okay, I can't see any action film topping what they're doing right here this year. And so I'm very pleased that Furiosa got the best stunts, and that we do recognize the stunt craftsmen who are doing incredible work all the time.
Well, you have been watching Meet Me at the Movies, the North Carolina Film Critics Association special for the Best of Cinema for 2024. Just a few more mentions, and then again, the full list you can find at ncfilmcritics.org. But Best Documentary went to Superman, the Christopher Reeve story. Best Animated Film, The Wild Robot. That also received the Best Voice Talent for Lupita Nyong'o. And Best Foreign Language Film, All We Imagine as Light. And the Lifetime Achievement Award went to Roger Deakins. We were celebrating cinematography this year. Thomas, any other final mentions you wanted to make sure you got out there? I know there was one, the Best Actor, that you wanted to shout out to.
That's right, Coleman Domingo for Sing Sing. In this film, he is someone who is carrying a tremendous amount of weight on his shoulders at all times. And with each pebble added to this weight, that pressure mounts, and eventually that pressure becomes unbearable. And I just think the restraint that Domingo shows in his performance is that makes it probably my favorite performance of the year. So very, very happy to see his recognition for Sing Sing.
Well, you have been watching Meet Me at the Movies, the North Carolina Film Critics Association Spotlight on the Best of Cinema for 2024. These were the awards that were handed out. Check out all the awards, ncfilmcritics.org. We do appreciate you spending time with us right here, and congratulations to all the winners, especially Margaret Qualley. Those North Carolina roots remind us that talent comes from anywhere you choose for it to. So thank you, NC Film Critics, for reminding us that cinema has the ability to captivate, to inspire, from the technical achievements to thought-provoking stories. I really think this year's winners push the boundaries and continues to set new standards of why cinema matters. Until next time, for Meet Me at the Movies, for Thomas Manning, for all of us right here at C19 TV, the cast and crew, we thank you, and that is a wrap.
Won't you come and watch a